Now we move on to Asia. Japan's Komeito Party will leave the ruling coalition led by the Liberal Democratic Party, marking a historic shift for the alliance that has ruled Japan for most of the past 2 decades. Komeito's exit could jeopardize the path for newly elected LDP chief Sanae Takaichi to become Japan's next prime minister, as her appointment required support from the coalition partner. Komeito leader Tetsuo Saito has informed Takaichi of the decision during a meeting on Friday. It is unclear whether Komeito will continue to support the LDP in parliament, which may hurt Takaichi's chances in an upcoming vote. The LDP holds 296 of 713 seats in parliament, while Komeito holds 45 seats. Takaichi's selection last week has affected markets, with stocks rising and the yen weakening due to expectations around fiscal stimulus and Abenomics policies. Komeito's departure could lead to an unwinding of the so-called Takaichi trade. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Asta Shada. She's a Ritsumeikan University professor, joins us live from Kyoto. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. What more can you tell us about this news, and what do you think led to Komeito's departure?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, this news has been something which, at least for the past 2-3 days, we've been hearing on and off in Japan. As I sit here in Kyoto, and there were several disagreements that Komeito has had with the LDP party, and those disagreements date before the previous Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba had to step down, and one of the, I would say there are two major reasons one could highlight for this split that has happened after 26 years of this coalition surviving somehow in Japan. So one reason is the fact that there have been several instances of political funding scandals within the LDP and in the Japanese government, and hence one of the reforms that Komeito was seeking was for the political funding, and what they ultimately wanted was to limit the beneficiaries of the corporates who were funding the political parties in Japan. And what the draft that Komeito had come up in March with the Democratic Party for the People, or the DPP in Japan, basically made two major restrictions. One was to restrict the corporate donations, and the corporates would only be able to donate money to headquarters and prefectural chapters in Japan, and not to any individual lawmakers. That was number one. And two, they were trying to put a cap on the overall donations that could be made to any single party, which was at 20 million Japanese yen. And the idea was to stop, or in some way, limit the influence of large corporate donors on individual policymakers, as well as on the wider policy making. And there is hence a split, because LDP could not provide what Komeito was seeking in terms of its acceptance of this newly drafted reform for political funding. The second issue that came to light was that there were some ideological deficits, I would say, within this partnership that has survived for over 25 years. And there were concerns over public trust. So in the past elections, both Komeito and LDP have lost significantly. And even jointly, they don't hold any majority. And hence today, when Komeito backs out, we must remember that Komeito is also backed by Soka Gakkai, which is very concerned about Sanae Takaichi, who has been elected as the head or the president of the LDP for her hardline and conservative stance. So, given that Komeito's split from LDP is not so much of I would say, of a surprise, because this had been doing rounds in the news for the past 2-3 days, as I mentioned. What is more concerning is whether they will continue to support Sanae Takaichi in her bid to become Japan's next prime minister.
And Dr. Chatta, how might Komeito's departure from this ruling coalition impact the future of, you've already kind of touched down on it, but LDP's leadership?
Yeah, correct. I mean, this is going to be a big blow, as I mentioned, to LDP, because, I have spoken earlier on your channel about this, that Sanae Takaichi's candidature and her selection as LDP's president does not really guarantee her support or her position as the future prime minister of Japan. And so now LDP is in a really hard position because with Komeito's exit, and this is given that Komeito earlier had stated that if they really do exit this partnership with LDP, they will no longer support any of the LDP candidates for prime minister. Now, given they haven't said anything today about it, but if that is going to be their stance, this makes it very difficult for LDP to get more support for Sanae Takaichi. That's one. Two, they will need to start courting the opposition, which is something that they probably were not planning, in the past few weeks. So now they have most likely candidates for getting courted by LDP are going to be Democratic Party for People, who were the ones who also co-drafted that reform document together with Komeito, or could be Nippon Ishin Nokai, which is Japan's innovation party. And both of them, or either of them, are really necessary to secure at least some amount of votes if Sanae Takaichi wants to be elected as the prime minister. That's one. And two, no matter what happens, this exit by Komeito leaves LDP in a very, very vulnerable position. They have had been slipping in terms of trust, not just within their coalition, within this partnership, but also if you look at the public opinion polls, LDP had been losing big. And so, given that a partner that has been staying for long enough time is exiting at this point, this is going to make it difficult, even if Sanae Takaichi were to be elected as the prime minister, passing any legislation, things like national budget, everything would become extremely difficult for them to manage, given that they have too many opposing forces now.
With that, I would like to thank Dr. Asta Chada for joining us from Japan and giving us that insight. Thank you very much.